Greetings. This is the construct. This is the clean slate, the construct of your mind. Why are we here today? We want to talk about MedBEDs. The hype, the illusions, the real. MedBEDs. How do you define MedBED? Medicinal device that you lay in that does what? Which will be explained to you furthermore. The definition of genius is what? Is it the translation? What makes sense in this world of wellness and healthcare, mental health care, thought management, thought hygiene, mental hygiene? Well, they say 90% is your brain and 10% is the body responding. So any symptom, any signal, or any discomfort, any symptomology coming of this avatar sends a signal of what? You've guessed right, a disease. What is a dis-ease? How does the mind come to the conclusion that there is something not right with me? Is it the exhaustibility, the level of energy, the input, output, the perception, or how you use your brain? It is everything and beyond. So this theatrical outfit, to bring more of a spectacle to you, I'll explain to you what the invention of the MedBED entails. So, how was the technology conceived? And many want to test MedBEDs, and they think sci-fi, and they see CGI and animations on TV, or they heard that the president was, or former president was laying in one, which was a photoshopped image. Again, CGI, some animation, it is not real. Reality is when something is put into physical form, there's an accessibility, and then you have data. As in healing data, wellness data, when people actually get better, when the cellular matrix is at the level of communication where the body functions according to factory settings, the default settings from source. That's how you came here. And the idea is to bring you back to your default settings. But how deep does that go? The fall of Atlantis, the fall of Mars, Jupiter, Venus. You've been in those wars, you have those memories, you know. I'm just an extremely outward with it starseed that expresses himself in a way so it makes sense and it rings bells in the mind. Henceforth I speak clear, I don't stutter, I do not second guess, I do not reinvent what already has been created. As they say in China, there's nothing new under the sun. Exactly. Now, how was this MedBED of mine conceived? Simple. I have observed holy places all over the planet. Holy water, the fountain in Lourdes, France. Many other holy wells where people had miraculous healings. Spontaneous healings, epiphanies, downloads, past lives returning. A plethora of things that will sound like when they manifest and come into your life like upgrades. That is when I was inspired to hunt and go forward with it. And to look at why is that? Because it is my concern then what you see in the ongoings on this planet, that 300 million people in social media of lower consciousness can click on something that is irrelevant and non-essential for your well-being. But it is essential for those at that level to learn that this is the lower level of consciousness, and it prolongs the way and the level of ascension. We are here, we're trying to get out of it, we're trying to recover, aren't we not? Aren't you here for a reason, for a purpose, to do it better, to make the better choice, to be the better being? Then let's make it so. That's why I've come to you in this way, in this form, to show you there are possibilities. So, back to the conception of that, what I call the cell well, that is based on a holodynamic principle and many other sciences that have yet to be discovered, but are actually fully active. So I ever wondered, how is it that the pyramid has a functionality in the electromagnetic spectrum, in the ionic spectrum, in the photonic and the magnetic, without being plugged in? I see many devices, scalar technology, all using a 60 Hertz or 50 Hertz modality to run. Well, forced things won't last. As I study the ancient Hermetic principles, laws of correspondence, the laws of gender, the laws of polarity, things that are governed by universal programs that govern this universe that you and I are part of right now in here. So let's go to the spectrum Metatron. Metatron is not an archangel, it is an archetypical program of a divinity, how molecules align. Science has shown us that when a molecule is in its alignment at the base, you see a hexagonal pattern formed like two tetrahedrons intertwine in another, forming a what? You've guessed it right, a star. What the ancient belief systems, before they were called religion, as in rely on jinn, or religio, to rely on something unknown that is promised after this. You have to get out of the illusion claiming that what you believe in is the only alpha and omega in this here realm. There's oneness, there's the law of one, there's what connects us, what combines us, what brings us together into actually hive mind of a soul processes for expansion, refinement, and amplification. Of that is what makes the soul. So I looked at pyramids, I looked at the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, the unfinished chamber, and I looked at what scientists have brought forward in aspect to what does it do? What happens when I'm in this realm? Well, I found out if I look at the king's chamber, queen's chamber, unfinished chamber, Temple of Sophia, Temple of Dendera, certain spots in the Temple of Dendera, the Temple of Abydos, the entire section of the Aswan, the Nile Delta, the Temple of Horus, the Hathor Temple, Abu Simbel. What do these constructs have in common? Well, they all are communicating on levels that Tesla worked with, Einstein worked with, Wilhelm Reich worked with. So I'm looking at a lot of things that we're trying to investigate, but we don't quite know what they mean. One is orgon. Another one is tachyon. Another one is grounding as in magnetic axiotonal alignment. Then we look at negative ions, hence the Niagara Falls, the canyons of Sedona. and we look at photons. But photons in a way, how do photons travel? And what are biophotons? That has to do with bioresonance. But these programs entail also longitudinal waves standing electromagnetically, emanating some impulse at a certain hertz frequencies that varies, that we have yet to investigate. We don't know what it does. We call it scalar wave. So the MedBED, which I call the CELLWELL, was leaned on a vision that I had once. And I felt strongly the vision that I had was an Atlantean vision. When we were a balanced civilization, and we had these healing beds. These looked like these sarcophagus-like constructs you see in Egypt, but they were crystalline. They were see-through, they were shimmering, they were like clear quartz crystal, but even finer, and blue light would emanate from them and through them and throughout. And you would lay in them, and within the hour you would heal. Perfect healing modality. And I am thinking to myself, what is it that I am looking at? And what is that giving me? So let this vision that I had be a re-download of my soul to remember something. So I follow the trail. I follow that this was about photons going into the body, magnetic alignment, as the magnetics were way higher on the earth. The studies have shown that if you go back 150 million years, the magnetics were much, much, much higher, at a very high level. Hence, more chromosomes, hence giants, healing, magic, a lot of things that are next to dormant on this planet were there. Explaining why the human race predominantly is ungrounded, is caught in the media. The Greek goddess Media is the goddess of illusion, but people are addicted to that because nothing seems to be happening in their life. But we want to go back to the magic and to the wellness of things. So if we combine, like I said before, tachyon, scalar, magnetic axiotonal alignment, negative ions, tachyon energy, scalar energy, and put it all in one system that I have created, you have a potency of a tremendous wellness faculty for the cells to respond. Now, why is that? And why am I saying that? On the deepest level, your body is made out of light. The Kesh Foundation call it the plasma body. The Egyptians call the astral body the doppelganger or the Ka. Well, if the Ka is not in order, you can't not be in order. If your oversoul or your higher self is not in communique with you, you are having trouble. Before praying to any outside forces, ascended masters and gods and deities and whatever, you need to pray yourself and your oversoul, which is the original blueprint of your soul settings before you came to this planet. And this is, in this modality, what I'm trying to re-establish. That not only the wellness takes place within the body, but the reloading of past lives that are important and that are essential for you to fix, basically to get your ducks in a row, as in get your avatars in a row that need to be in that row, as in a golden line, to form that timeline, to heal that what your ancestors have left you with. Because you are the sum of your ancestral lineage and programming, as in whatever belief system that ever went through your ancestors. They are in your mitochondria, they are in the deepest level of your cell structure, your cell matrix. But how does the body communicate on the deepest level? Before any shaman, before any doctor, before any substance, there is light. There's the photonic level. And what do they call the photon? Which, by the way, is not a massless particle. Sounds like jumbo shrimp or military intelligence. It's a non sequitur. Actually, a photon is a holon. It is a particle that has mass, but at a very, 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 very high level. It's not as dense as you might think. So when we go there and go to the level of the atomic structure of that where your photons exist, we're looking at communication. Science has now found out that it's called intracellular communication. How your entire system works, your entire network fires is through light. Before we go into the electrons, we are at the photon level. Because the electric body cannot fire together if it's not wired together. And that has to do with the communication of the photons. And that is important. How do we break down photons? Well, let's go as an example. Photon travels between cells. You have cell type A, cell type B. The communication happens between the photons being exchanged between the cells. The communication then translates into biochemical impulses in between the cells. Within a nanosecond, that can be 100,000 to 200,000 nano impulses, biochemical things going back and forth between the cells. We have yet to understand why is that, what does that mean? It looks like kind of like a scalar wave between the two cells going very fast and very quick. Well, that has to do with scalar, quantum, DNA, entanglement, programming at a very, very high level, at the speed of light. The Egyptians knew that the speed of light is the fastest in the vacuum. That's why we have generators that work in a vacuum with the means to capture photons from a 23rd dimensional level and to put it into a storage medium to activate these things within that construct. Many people on Earth and in industry have yet to learn the technology that has been reloaded into this avatar to bring to this planet. And I'll bring more to you to explain how does this work? How is it applied, and where are the effects? Let's take a journey to the stars, a trip to the future, and envision ourselves in ways we have never envisioned ourselves. So, bring forth the aspect that I have long lost on planet Maldek, thousands of years before this planet blew up, found in a basin, freed by a psychic, and the scientific aspect of that cosmic master builder has returned. So, I'll explain to you how that takes place. Well, what I'm doing with the CELLWELL is I'm placing you in a modality of a frequency where wellness can occur. Things that haven't been taken care and maintaining the vessel will be addressed. You have to do the work. You can do the way of the shaman and you can do the medicinal way, but there's always what? This is the software. The software is the teacher. The pilgrim is you. Work always must be applied, meaning several sessions are needed in a MedBED. It's not like you laying in a MedBED, you push a button, limbs regrow. This is not how this works. It's like can you imagine planting a seed in the ground and the tree will grow in an instant? I'll put you in a zero field without electricity. Let me explain this to you. There are two types of vacuum which I've received in my download. One vacuum is the vacuum in space where oxygen is void. There's another vacuum that's a vacuum in time-space that ships generated that come here from different timelines where you can still breathe, but you no longer are subject to the linearity of time or the concept as it is received. This is the second part of the vacuum. So one with the oxygen being void and what we know, putting people in a tin can, shooting them to the outer rim as far as we can go, pumping them with oxygen, trying to keep them alive as the body withers away because it loses its earthly signature from the mineral impulse. Again, having to do with what? Bioresonance. So looking at astronauts, I realized, okay, as long as the body is in bioresonance, we are fine. If you take that body out of its contextual environment that is conducive to you, you lose that. Disease moves in. So the body in the MedBED is basically copied to the higher version. And the higher version now compares itself to the lower construct. As many psychics have said, if you're not in agreement with you, you're in trouble. So here's how this works. As the copy reaches the higher copy, you are basically forced on a subatomic level to face yourself. And the repair begins. Well, Russian scientists have found out that the RNA begins to go into self-repair mode when the light is folded 15 times. As in, light laser beams 10 to the 15th, if you can follow that. 15. So 15-dimensional it has to be before actually undiluted light comes into the matrix and the wellness can occur, such as DNA repair, conscious repair, on all levels, and finding also and attracting the modalities and tools that you need to do the healing process. It is not just done for you, it is addressed. What tools you need from the shed to know where the shed is to what fix, or what needs to be fixed, or what's the modality. Modern day science is designed in a way that, well, let's say you are a refrigerator. And read what you buy in your temporary and regulated drugstores. It says for temporary relief. It never says for healing or for complete healing or for complete wellness. It never says that. Not one item. And we have hundreds of thousands of items out there. So be aware that it is so. So what we're doing is we are addicted to numbing the alert system, numbing the symptomology of the system to go around. Are we making it better or are we making it worse? You know the answer. I'm not a doctor, I'm an observer, and I allow myself to be with every faculty that is me, that makes me to be here to present this to you. Now, when the refrigerator light blinks, that the temperature is failing in the refrigerator because the aggregation or the aggregate that runs the coolant doesn't run the cooling properly anymore. It's an organ. It's mechanical, but nevertheless it's an organ. And it's failing, and the red light is blinking. So if you go to your regular store, you put a Band-Aid over the light, and you ignore that it's blinking because you're not seeing it anymore. So basically you numb the symptom, but the temperature in the refrigerator is still failing, and perishables will go where you know where decay is. Which leads me now to, what's your proof? How does this work? How did you establish such a system and you're convinced that there are changes? Again, hear the testimonials of the people that have experienced the system, not me saying things. So here's one thing that I can say. A bioresonant crystal charged with a light on a level of 10 to the 23rd, we have managed to build that now, stored in a 0.8 millimeter clear quartz crystal pebble, has the emanation power of 2 to 3 kilograms of quartz crystals. Now imagine you have 100 of those pearls in your hand, you're sitting literally in a crystal mine. So we looked at what happens in a crystal mine. Asthma disappears, diabetes disappears, people heal, PTSD disappears, ADD, always dialed in the higher dimensions, also disappears. I'm not making claims, this is research from people being in nature. What happens when I put somebody from Times Square into the jungle of, let's say, Hawaii? Let's not go so far. 1 hour later, the brain hemispheres are balanced. The stress levels down 85%, and healing repair can begin. But not all the time do we have the time to go to Hawaii, sit in a king's chamber, or find healing modalities that help us. Hence, I have developed pendants that create bioresonance to keep the biofield intact. What is EMF? Electromagnetic frequency. What does EMF actually do to the body? It upsets the bioresonant factor of the self. Again, what is bioresonance? How do you define bioresonance? Well, if grandma puts the potatoes in a root cellar, the root cellar that is dug into the ground with the soil, not limestone and walls put up that shield you and isolate you or insulate you. Well, the potatoes last a year. The apples last a year. Everything that's put in glass lasts 10 to 20 years. But in your kitchen, it fails after 4 days. In your fridge, maybe 2 weeks. Why is that? Because it's not in bioresonance. And you can test that at home. So we took a 0.8 millimeter glass pebble and put it in a glass of milk. Milk is what? Homogenized, pasteurized, cooked. It's basically boiled fat. It's dead. And what happens when you leave milk in a glass in the kitchen after 3 days? Everybody can experiment that. Well, it'll rot, it'll turn green, it'll turn moldy, it'll turn into decay, it'll turn into rot. So what we have studied is that the King's chamber emanates so much photon that it mummifies, hence mummy. Decay stops. Why is that? Because we're changing the light levels and the level of where bioresonance takes place. So you put the glass pebble into the glass of milk, and after 3 days it turns into yogurt. The biovital accessibility of milk and the dead bacteria made it coming back to life, making this a probiotic drink which is healthy, turning back to nature, and enabling you to digest something now. For those that are lactose intolerant, I suggest don't do it at home. It's not necessarily that you need milk, you need liquids. You need 1.2 liters a day of 7.2 pH water before dabbling with any alkaline or super diets or this and that. That's what your body knows, because the body has its own homeostasis. But if you don't put the body in the field where it knows and has its own awareness how this works, your body has a time readjusting, fixing, and recalibrating itself to come back to center, to where you actually are. So when you want to look at vast energy fields, how these fields exist, how these fields communicate, do they actually do? You learn that everything is based on sacred geometry, holy geometry, as in geometry complete, geometry as intended by the Creator, which in part is you, resembling you, reflecting you in many, many, many fractals in the world. So the healing idea for the CELLWELL, the holographic MedBED or holodynamic MedBED, is more showing to you a principle of how things can work together and can be changed. But now the consciousness cannot be overridden. If a person is obsessed with, I want to leave the planet, you know, maybe when I'm 75 I die of a heart attack, and at the age of 30 you're already touching your heart and you're saying, yeah, this world makes me sick, you're already setting the program and the precursor for that taking place to occur. Whether it's man or woman, I cannot override the free will of your choice is different than what is offered. So wellness is always an offering, and it takes many, many sessions. Whatever discomfort you have, if you want to see a change, you need the discipline. And I'd say at least 21 days of something that must be done in the wellness spectrum to see a change, whether it's alternative or so-called medicinal. And you cannot get rid of it without seeing changes. Ask yourself, is a healing modality taking place? Are we getting well? Are we getting better? So the consciousness now has the opportunity to learn, what does wellness mean? What does that even entail? How do I get well? How do I get better? What is better? How do you define better? A medicinal bed in a hospital that's $200,000 is an electrical device to monitor your heart rate and if you're still alive. Has nothing to do with any wellness or healing modalities. So don't get these concepts confused. Holodynamic wellness pods to reconfigure the construct of your RNA and DNA and the way your cells communicate on an intracellular level. So this makes sense. So if this makes sense to you, then you know what you can expect. And is Olympics of the MedBEDs now. May those with the most brilliant and highest outcome for all, results win. There is no competition. There is a composition of all of us working together, forming this big grand orchestra of being ourselves. Is an extra astral terra, or extra terra astral. That's who you are. We call that out there extraterrestrials when it is us. It has always been us, and it always will be us. This is the journey we are here to take and experience. And isn't it fantastic that we can experience this and have the chance in the age of Aquarius to explore this and find it and get into it? That's why you're here. That's why I'm here. That's why we're also having fun and the joy in exploring those things and supporting one another to find that, because this is the new galactic tribe and the call is out. So for you, only for you. Peace and blessings.